Hi folks, Buffin here with your Antifa News Briefa for September 11th, 2021. It is the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks, so I want to say condolences to all people lost in those attacks and the aftermath, including the wars and the war within America since then, with the intensification of the police state in America. So, blessings to all those spirits and all those families of people who've suffered as a result of this chain of events. And this is actually going to be a conspiracy edition. I did another one just commemorating September 11th and talking about it, but I did want to address the conspiracies related to, or a conspiracy anyway, related to September 11th. I probably wouldn't have done this, but I saw there was I heard a radio interview today with somebody who had produced Loose Change, which was apparently, I never heard of it, apparently, this big viral sensation as far as getting this truther movement started. People saying that the government was lying about September 11th. And I guess the first thing I want to say is, even if the government is lying about September 11th, it doesn't mean that Alex Jones is telling the truth about anything. And conversely, just because Alex Jones is a big fat liar who is, lying about September 11th, I don't really know what his theory is, but I'm sure he's lying about it. But just because he's a liar lying about it doesn't mean that the official version of events is true. So they could both be lying. So to take a step back, I just want to say something about conspiracy theories in general. There is a conspiracy, and I think it's really obvious. And I think most conspiracy theories are distractions from a really freaking obvious conspiracy. And that is, oil companies and weapons companies want to keep oil and weapons going, kind of keep oil and war going, for their reasons, and that's pretty much it. That's the conspiracy. I mean, it has worse effects than that. That doesn't sound too bad. I mean, war, but I mean, just keeping oil going doesn't sound too bad if you don't think about it. But if you do think about it, yeah, that's what's perpetuating climate change. So they're willing to destroy the entire planet and parts of the planet for their business. That's the core of it. Then, you've got Putin, and you've got Trump, and you've got Zuckerberg, Facebook. You've got the ways that the oil and weapons companies extend into other corporations, governments, fields of work. And yeah, that's the conspiracy. Okay, it's not hard to see or to understand or anything. That's it. They come up with other conspiracies. See my video about Russian lumberjack pirates, which don't exist. But people had theories that loggers were chopping down most of their forest and then burning the rest, and that's why the fires were so much worse. And they only recently, like last year, 2020, according to a report I heard, is the common knowledge that, hey, this is global warming. But if you come up with some crazy theory that's fun to talk about, then yeah, people can be dissuaded from what really happened. Now, regarding September 11th, I guess a couple things made me want to do this. One was a report they had from Joanne Allen. I think her podcast is called Been There, Done That. And on her podcast, she's reminiscing with a fellow reporter from New York about reporting on the attacks. And in that report, I forgot the other reporter's name, I apologize to say, she says that she saw the building collapse like a controlled demolition, but of course it wasn't a controlled demolition. That's what she says. I saw it collapse like a controlled demolition, but of course it wasn't a controlled demolition. But it looked like exactly like a controlled demolition when she was there as an eyewitness looking at it. I mean, people have seen the videos and formulate their own opinions or have that idea about what that means. But it brought it up how, even though this type of evidence suggests this, and this is what people thought because this evidence suggests this, we know it's not that. And I mean, I personally just can't be too certain because I have personally seen one documentary about what really happened on September 11th that I do put some credit in, as far as it made sense. Now, I'll come back to that and tell you a little bit more about it. But I mean, it made sense in a terrible way because it's a terrible thing to happen. But again, the reason I wanted to make this video is because they had somebody, I don't know what his name was, on the radio on NPR today talking about having produced this movie. And part of his story was how he knew it was going to be big when he shipped 10 copies to Joe Rogan. And as he put it, I liked Joe Rogan from the MMA world. So, maybe Joe Rogan had been doing his talk show kind of thing for a little while at this point, but 20 years ago, but he probably wasn't that big or influential. Now he's like a top news story when he gets COVID and is suing because CNN said he took ivermectin, and he said he did, but he got his doctor to prescribe it. So I don't know. It doesn't matter, but he's, a hot topic now. And this is probably part of what made him that way. I imagine Alex Jones the same way. I mean, again, they probably had some type of following before, but then they had this story. And if the government's lying, for instance, if there's more to it than what the government has told people, then people want to know. And people who provide a story, that's appealing. If this goes viral, by the way, which it shouldn't, I mean, who knows, but check out my other videos because I got way better stuff than this. But, most likely if you're watching this, it's gone viral because most people aren't going to see it because I'm on a shadow ban channel. Anyway, and probably most people aren't talking about these conspiracies that much because they've been debunked, or people who talk about them, they get, suppressed for talking about, well, like I said, I've already been suppressed, so what do I care? It can't hurt me. But anyway, the point is that these theorists went on, such as Joe Rogan and Alex Jones and some others, I'm sure, went on to promote all this stuff that we know is complete crap and terrible. And we know that they're terrible. But again, just because they're lying or they put forth lies about the events doesn't mean that the official story was true. Now, the only thing I know is that, having been alive on that day, they reported they shot down the other plane. And then they reported later that day that they did not shoot it down. That I think it was late, even within a few hours, they were reporting that they didn't shoot it down, that it had crashed. And that could just be, a misreport, that the plane went down and somebody got it wrong and said that somebody shot it down. Or it could have been shot down because, with planes being used in a terrorist attack and that one having also been hijacked, it's not unreasonable to have shot it down. It's, it's a bad look. It's so disturbing to say that because it's terrible to think about killing citizens to protect the country or other citizens or whatever, if that was the case. That's a terrible thing. But we've just got through Trump really pushing hard in the effort that did kill like 600,000 Americans. So it doesn't seem like, past their capacity, even at that time 20 years ago. And it doesn't, and again, it just seems justified. Like I can understand having done that, and I can understand wanting to lie about it and say, no, we didn't do that. Something else must have happened. But that's all I really know that I can question about the official version, is that I do know that they reported that they scrambled a fighter jet that shot down that plane. And then they changed that story. And I just don't know if I ever believed them when they changed it, or, if I shouldn't have taken it as a true report the first time. So I'm not really, coming down one way or another on that. Just throwing it out there. The reason I'm making this is because they were mentioning a lot of these weird conspiracies, such as that the guy who they were interviewing was saying he didn't even approve of some of the things they were putting into their movie that went viral and started the whole truther movement or whatever, according to them. That one of the things he didn't agree with was the whole Cleveland stuff, which meant that that plane actually landed somewhere. And it's like, okay, yeah. But it's like the people who would make up that type of story, are making up like if the real story was that it was shot down, and they didn't want people to think that, and so they have the Flight 93 movie and that version of events, which may not have happened, but if it does, the story makes people feel good. If it did happen, that I'm not trying to dismiss that at all. Like I said, I'm not coming down one way or another on it. But if it was shot down, then that didn't happen, and or if that was in progress of happening when it was shot down. But it also didn't land in Cleveland. Like two of these things could have been happening at the same time, but not the third. So my point is that if they're trying to cover up the having to shoot it down with an even crazier story about something else to distract that aspect of the story, I can see where that type of stuff comes from. I do not know anything about the claims I saw in a documentary, but what I do know is the documentary they're talking about, they're saying all of these are poorly produced. The one I saw looked like it was pretty well produced, so it might not have been one of those, but I saw it on like a public access TV channel. It was claiming that George W. Bush's uncle had the contract to remove the asbestos from the World Trade Center, so he had a certain floor all to himself or to his company, and that they might have planted explosives up and down the building and destroyed it like a controlled demolition. And that has all sorts of implications, that if they did that in order to start the war on terror, all this other stuff, and blame Osama bin Laden, and had the planes come in, it has a lot of implications.